All right. Good evening. Today is Tuesday, February 3rd, 2026. This is the Student Services Committee meeting for the School District of Waukesha. And tonight, Mrs. Kozlowski has been excused. I'd like to verify that the meeting has been properly posted.
Yes, it was.
Very good. All right. And then do we have anyone signed up for public comment?
We don't.
Excellent, very good. Moving right into our action items. Our first one is the approval of the minutes from the January Student Services meeting. Is there any questions on that one? Otherwise, I'm looking for a motion to approve.
I move to approve the minutes as presented.
Second.
All right, motion by Mr. Brooks, seconded by Mrs. Gren. Any other discussion? All right, all in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion passes 4-0. We will move into our second action item tonight, which is policy 5515, student use of motor vehicles, and I will hand it off to Mr. Pat to discuss and introduce the topic.
Thank you, Mr. Harlan. Yeah, we'll jump right into some updated policy from Neola. The first one, 5515, really updates our student parking policy. So obviously it's high school specific. And currently through our system, there's a monitoring of which vehicles are in our parking lots. It's a privilege to be able to park there. There is a fee that is there. The fee has been reduced. It was $100 per semester. It is down to $70 per semester. That fee is prorated according to potential student needs and different things. That way, again, one semester, second semester, there are day parking passes, different aspects, and then the funding for that goes back into a fund earmarked for repair and maintenance of parking lots, striping, and the cost of those permits does not come near with the cost it takes to redo an entire parking lot and things like that, but it does go towards the wear and tear that students that pay for it and have the privilege to go and use it do. All of our schools do have neighborhood parking, though not convenient. As convenient, it is available. So just knowing all that, our parking lots are monitored by our staff to ensure that students have the proper parking permits. They actually have numbered spots as well. Depending on our buildings, I know that West High School, which I have most experience with, has numbered spots, and we ensure that everybody has their pass and things are good to go that way. So in looking at the policy, you'd be surprised that students sometimes think they can go into different cars or do different things and do what they choose to do. So it clearly outlines that if you're going to have a vehicle on district property, students, it's like somebody's personal property. You don't just open doors, you don't just go in it. You don't have the right to go in it. Make sure you have permission and make sure the vehicle that you're bringing on campus, you have permission to bring on campus. Just, they seem like common sense things, but policy really supports any instances where something like that could be in question. In my tenure as principal, there were several situations with vehicles in the parking lot, and this policy directly gives the administration some solid backing to support the actions of some students against others if it's against their will. So.
Very good. Any questions? So you said that this obviously, there has been some instances, will this will also be included in student handbooks as a revision or an update to that? And then would that be done immediately, or when would the next revision with this outlined in it be?
Yeah, go ahead.
That's a good question, Mr. Harlan. So if the committee approves it and then the full board approves it, I work with Julie, who is Ryan's secretary, but works with me on the Policy and Government Relations Committee, and then we update that handbook on a regular basis now so that the links connect to the new policies.
And then I guess just a small note, it says Neola 2025, should that reference 26? Or is it still an old 25 recommendation?
I can take that too, Mr. Harlan. So our most recent Neola update, which Mr. Pat is pulling this from, was from November of '25. We just went through it with our Neola consultant in January of '26.
Makes sense. Very good. If there are no other questions, I would be looking for a motion to approve policy 5515.
Motion to approve policy 5515 as presented.
Second.
All right, very good. Any other discussion? All right, so all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No. Motion passes 4-0. We'll move into our third potential action item is policy 5895, which is student employment. And I will hand it back to Mr. Pat.
Thank you, Mr. Harlan. My hope is this is one of the fastest on record. It's a rescind of a policy on student employment. Basically, our schools and our principal secretaries would be the individuals who would give out work permits. Students had to bring all sorts of documentation, parents, and it was quite a task and took quite a bit of time. Department of Workforce Development now has the ability for everyone to do that online and upload documents accordingly, so there's no need for us to have this policy because we do nothing other than let people know to go to that website for work permits.
Very good. Are there any questions on the rescinding of policy 5895? All right, so we will make this very quick then. So I'm looking for a motion then to approve the rescinding of this policy.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Brooks, seconded by Mrs. Gren. Any other discussion? All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion passes 4-0. We will move into our discussion items tonight. Our first one is the Recovery High School Planning, and I will hand to Mr. Pat to introduce that topic.
Thank you, Mr. Harlan, and I'd like to welcome up Mr. Mark Lennerer, our Director of Student Services. We're going to be co-presenting and providing you information on our where we are at with our Recovery High School planning. I have in the past sent board updates to board members in regards to our Recovery High School and the efforts we have taken to, we received planning grants for that and kind of some of the journey we've taken. It's taken a backseat to some other things we've been doing in the district. So we have still behind the scenes been meeting and planning, and we're going to share all that information here for you to consider. And we'll talk a little bit more about that at the end of the presentation. So I think I haven't shared. Thank you. Let's try that. There we go. All right, Recovery High School. Here's really the agenda that we're going to go through. We have about 20 slides. We'll try to go as quickly as we can and summarize for you. Two pieces of information you have. Obviously, we're going to go through this. You also have a one-pager, front and back, kind of a summary of Recovery High School for your reference as well, instead of this 20 PowerPoint presentation. But what recovery means to students, defining a Recovery High School, data and some resources, timeline, mission, vision, community partnerships, portrait of a Recovery High School student, and portrait of some of the staff as well, and the Recovery High School practices or staff practices.
So what does recovery mean? Well, for adults, oftentimes going through recovery following substance use is about getting their life back. But for students, it's oftentimes about getting their lives started, because once they are abusing substances, in a lot of ways, their development stalls. And so our goal with a Recovery High School is to get students back into an academic setting and allow them to move forward with their lives. The benefit of a Recovery High School setting is to create that sober circle, as it's called, where recovery is a cool thing, where they do see themselves as separate from other students, and that other students haven't had these same experiences that they're having. And so they create their own space to support each other, to support each other's sobriety, and also then to support their academic growth as well. The whole goal of the system is to create that sense of stability, predictable routines, healthy coping skills, strong relationships with mentors, some of whom may also be in recovery. You know, that's been kind of a common theme in the work that we've seen through the different recovery schools. A lot of times the people that want to come forward and assist in those types of settings are in recovery themselves. Not everybody, but it's a thread that you see. And the end goal is for students to make those connections in order to support themselves so that they can move forward, not just in recovery, but also in their academics as well. What is a recovery high school? It's a specially designed secondary school for students negatively impacted by prior substance use and oftentimes co-current social emotional issues. Like they go hand in hand. And the goals across recovery high schools are similar: educate and support students in recovery from substance use or co-occurring disorders. Just to be clear, this is not a treatment program. Many students who go to recovery high schools have completed a treatment program, but either way, they're all committed to sobriety. I mean, that is kind of a no-nonsense, straightforward expectation for students that are going to be in a recovery high school. Our goal, of course, would be that they would meet the state requirements to be issued a high school diploma upon completion, and that they are in recovery and working that program of recovery as they go through their school years. So that's kind of a high-level view of what a recovery high school looks like.
There are multiple recovery high schools in the United States, and so this is just a map of where some of those exist. When you think of addiction recovery to what we're talking about, we know that the numbers are probably staggering for those individuals, and it starts in these formative years. So it just gives you an idea of where we're at. In the state of Wisconsin, there are currently 2 operating high schools. One has been around for a long time, Horizon High School. It is privately funded, so all of these schools are funded in a multitude of different ways, depending on the state, depending on legislation that exists, et cetera. And with the planning grant, I know that Beloit School District is in the planning stages similar to where we are, and Manitowoc has started a small-scale program as part of their high school program as well. So they have a few students that are at a recovery high school, what they would call a recovery high school in Manitowoc. And again, Virginia has just started quite a few. Washington and Oregon have some good models as well. So in our process, we've learned a lot about these different spaces and places.
So for those of you who have been on the board for a while, this is probably information that you're aware of. For those of you who may be newer to the board, this is our overall substance abuse statistics over several years related to expulsions and pre-expulsions. So these are students who have gone through a disciplinary process as a result of something that has happened at school. You can see the numbers there. The smaller numbers at the top are the expulsions, the blue, and that's the pre-expulsion process, which is a tier 2 intervention for the first time. You know, first time a student gets caught, they meet with me, they go through the pre-expulsion process. And so overall, this is about half of all of the processes that I do related to high-level student discipline. And so that is where we think we have a population of students that would benefit from this kind of a program. These are students who, you know, not all of them, but some of them struggle with ongoing use concerns. And we feel like this would be another option for students and families to explore. Beyond that, we would also look at other students from outside the district through a variety of means who may want to come to Waukesha to benefit from such a program. Some of the early intervention resources that we have that we utilize already, these have been ongoing for several years. We have our academic and social behavioral curriculums at the elementary schools, that's Second Step. At the secondary schools, that's our Navigate 360 platform, so that's universal instruction and things like making good choices. Too Good for Drugs is a drug and alcohol intervention or prevention program for 4th through 8th grade students. and that's ongoing each year. Peers for Peers is our high school group. Those are students who are making a choice to make good choices, and who also are out there sharing their story about how they are successful, happy students without using substances. They work as mentors for their peers. And then in terms of intervention, we have Aspire, which is an anti-tobacco intervention. It's done online. It's for students that may have been found to have a nicotine vape, for example, at school. It's a diversionary platform that doesn't require a student to be suspended. They do it through in-school suspension. Prime for Life is something that I and Jody Eminger Bentley, our AODA coordinator, she coordinates that. That is for students, again, with a first offense THC or alcohol violation. Teen Intervene is a higher level of intervention. That's for students who have come before me more than once. That is a series of 3 individual one-on-one counseling sessions with a certified drug counselor. The third one, actually, they asked the parents to attend as well to talk about some of the things that were discussed in the first 2 meetings. And then, of course, across the board, we have supportive behavioral practices. And those are things we've talked about in the past, things like our pre-expulsion process. When I started in school administration, which is hard to believe, but it's been 15 and a half years now, a first offense THC would get you in front of a board for an expulsion hearing in my previous district. While that sent a really hard-nosed message, it didn't support that student moving forward. I feel what we do here in Waukesha both sends a message that that type of behavior is not acceptable in a school setting, but on the other hand, that we will support that student moving forward, allow them to continue their education as long as they agree to some conditions through the process.
You heard Mr. Leonard talk about outside districts potentially coming to this recovery high school. When you saw the map, yes, Madison has a privately funded school, Manitowoc is far away, but the most populous area of the state is right here. And as you can see, there is no place for any students who might find themselves as a candidate for a recovery high school to go. All right, so kind of jumping in, the title of this, SDW Recovery High School Timeline, ARS supported. So ARS is the Association of Recovery Schools. Through the planning grant that we received, we partnered with them, and they have been fantastic. They are guiding us along the way. We meet regularly with our district team and their consultant, Roger Oser, who is wonderful. They support all the successful recovery high schools in the country for the most part, or have some sort of relationship with them. And they provide us with all the next steps that we've done for you to have an understanding of how we vetted things and where we are in the process. So you can see this is just kind of a quick timeline of where we are. We engaged in new learning with our district team. We did some site visits, the national conference. We have done the planning grant twice. The first time we did it was very, very late, and it was like second semester of last year. So really, it's been...
Through no fault of our own, by the way.
Correct.
It came to us very, very late.
Yes.
After another district decided to decline the grant. So they
Yes.
they said, you are our next choice. Would you like the grant? And so we had to start spending money rather quickly.
Yes, and so we were recipients of that again for the beginning of this year as well. And so we are utilizing that in all of our planning work. That allows us to travel to see some sites. I'll talk about that a little bit later on. Attend the national conference, which we did last year and are going to be doing again this year. And that moved us into, that was last year and a preview of this year. And then for the planning component, really October of this year, we just started really diving into this thing. So meeting on a monthly basis and then meeting with Roger and the team of individuals to start to craft what this would look like in Waukesha. Right now, we're planning for that implementation. We're here as part of that process, and we'll talk more about potentially opening that in September of 2026. What we did with ARS is kind of that technical assistance you'll hear as they really guide us through all the information they have, the data that they gather from recovery high schools, what works well. They have a process where they accredit these schools. There's 12 schools that are accredited who have gone through the process, and they kind of pre-plan you to open a school by taking you through kind of the accreditation process. And so I'm not going to go through all these different things, but we participated virtually with him. He's on the East Coast, where he brought in all these principals and individuals from other schools, other recovery schools that you saw on the map, to just share with us information about how they operate, what they've done, and for us to really take notes and see how that can shape our school here in Waukesha. So that's phase one, which we completed and went through all that processing here in the last 6 months or so. Phase two, design and implementation, that's ongoing, right? The technical assistance component. We really are working and shaping and changing ideas all the time based on the processes we're going through and the conversations we're having and trying to really fit this into Waukesha. There's a lot of components that come into that. And so we're talking with outside partners. We're working with other ARS schools. Once again, we're asking more questions. We're planning visits. We're doing things where we want to continue to shape what we have. We obviously have a mission and vision we're going to share with you. We've talked about a name for the school, talked about student-to-teacher ratio, how we want to do things. So all of that is part of that process. And so as we go through phase three, continuous improvement, this is what we'll start to, once we have implementation, we'll collect data, we'll do all sorts of different things for the accreditation process to see if what we're doing is effective. And so there's a whole ongoing thing. When we do this, we are not alone. It's not we jump in, we start this, and then we just figure it out. We have somebody who is there with us through grant funding, through support that will guide us along the way to help this be successful.
So as part of all those processes, we did create a mission and vision statement to provide an strong academic foundation for students in recovery while fostering that personal growth, responsibility, and resilience. We want to intentionally cultivate a supportive community where students build meaningful connections and practice perseverance in order to navigate toward their full potential. The vision would be to be a community of hope and empowerment for the students to receive a quality education, a healthy lifestyle of meaning and purpose, and preparing them for lifelong success in their recovery journey. Recovery is a journey. That's a common theme that we've heard across all the various schools that we worked with. Many of these schools, some of it intentional and some of it just by the nature of the relationships that are created, they keep strong connections with their former students for years and years. And those students go on to share their own stories of recovery, which is very impactful to the students who are going through it. And many of them, like I said, either support their schools through, financially in-kind donations, the gift of time. You really do see that as a common thread across the buildings. It's really kind of amazing to watch. So, in terms of the community partnerships that we already have, these are some of the things that we're leveraging as part of our work. Jody Emminger-Bentley, who I mentioned before, she's our district AODA coordinator, and she chairs the Substance Use Prevention Committee. So that is some of our partner agencies, things like Elevate, things like Rogers, things like Waukesha County, where we meet. We're actually meeting tomorrow to talk about things like Too Good for Drugs, Prime for Life, Aspire, always looking for ways to help impact students and to reduce the risk of students getting involved in substances in the first place. Also, Jody and I both serve as members of the Waukesha County Heroin Task Force, which, shout out to them, actually, have been so unbelievably successful in decreasing the number of heroin overdoses over the last 7 to 10 years through great job of education and also response. It's not unusual to see, for example, Narcan in a number of places, and for many of our staff have been trained in how to administer Narcan in an emergency situation, and that's the work of the Heroin Task Force. So they've been fantastic to work with. The Alliance for Wisconsin Youth, that's sort of the umbrella agency that works with us on prevention. And then, of course, the Waukesha County Overdose Fatality Review Board. That is a new partnership that we have. I'm on the steering committee. Jody is on the core team. And what they do is they actually look at situations in which there has been an overdose and what were the factors that led to that sad situation. And how could that possibly have been prevented? That is a very large group of very, very intelligent people, including a number of folks from the medical field and in medical research. It's been a really interesting and eye-opening experience for both Jody and myself. So what would a recovery student look like, or who are they? Well, oftentimes early stages of recovery, because they're asking for it or they need it. A history of substance abuse, possible co-occurring mental health needs. Their academic experience oftentimes is disrupted because of that treatment. When you have to do that, you don't wait until summer. You do it as soon as the student is willing to say yes. Oftentimes, these are students who have had negative school experiences, and they're conflicted about their motivation for school or recovery. So you want to help bring them in and decrease that amount of conflict. In terms of strengths that they have, they're very resilient. They can make positive change when they want to and when they're willing to work hard for it. They're oftentimes seeking a fresh start. They don't want to go back to where they were because they knew that where they were was not working for them. They have strong empathy for their peers, especially as they progress through the process and they see new people coming in. They have that strong sense of empathy and oftentimes are able to show that leadership capacity by acting as a mentor for those who come in after. As far as their academic profile, these are students with all sorts of academic skills. And so we have been very intentional about talking about what kind of academic programming we would be able to provide for students and how we can meet their needs where they are. These are students who thrive on individual learning pathways, which you're familiar with through a number of our programs here in the district. Things like STEM, things like Waukesha East, where we have different pathways for different student needs. They benefit from small relationship-based courses, and once they get engaged, their attendance oftentimes improves because it's no longer hidden, right? It's out there that, yeah, I had a problem that was impacting my attendance, but I'm willing to work on that now. What do they need? They do need emotional regulation support, and we have a number of different ways that we do that for students already. Things like our Providing Access to Healing or our PATH program. We would look to utilize that in some ways. We'd have to build in other supports as well, of course. We want to promote that engagement to bring them in rather than that fight or flight response. Help them scaffold their executive functioning habits, things like, how to do school. Because oftentimes that was a piece that was missed. So they're going to need support with how to study for a test, how to keep an electronic calendar, how to respond to emails. Those are things that they need help with. And then predictable routines and a clear structure that is scaffolded with adult support. Last one, how they grow. They move through those stages of change that are, pretty clearly delineated for students who are in recovery. They do respond well to peer-to-peer support. They build that recovery capital over time. That's why you hear, this is, I didn't come up with this. It's the whole concept of one day at a time for those in recovery. They're building on yesterday in the hopes of a better tomorrow. And they need to build that trust and self-esteem with the adults and with themselves and their peers. They need to have healthy relationships. And as they go forward, then they can start to see a purpose for their lives and create that sense of belonging.
So moving on to our staff, Mark touched on a little bit. I think one of the key pieces around a recovery high school is the students' ability to build trust in an environment where there's no longer secrets and they're sharing that common bond with their classmates and at sometimes their staff members. And the effectiveness of those individuals who commit their life to recovery and go and pour that out to the young people that are struggling with the same thing is super impactful. So what do they look like? Professional dispositions. They're committed to supporting youth impacted by substance abuse, oftentimes based on their experience, either personally or with a family member. There's a reason for it. Understanding adolescent development and trauma-informed practices. The individuals who are at these schools are well-trained to understand students and understand addiction and how to support, how to counsel, how to speak. So there's a training component that is involved for these individuals prior to them interacting with youth in our recovery high schools. Restorative behavior lens. So just to put it out there, when it comes to how we operate, Mr. Leonard talked about it a little bit with his previous district, the punishment aspect. Even now, we go through the pre-expulsion and expulsion process. You could go for pre-expulsion for an AODA offense, then move to expulsion for another AODA offense, or to abeyance at a different alternative site, or be in an alternative program and still move to abeyance if you have ongoing AODA substance issues. At a recovery high school, it's expected that students are in recovery, and if there's a relapse in recovery, oftentimes there is another restorative opportunity for that student to come back. So that's an important component to understand the power in the restorative component for students who are going through recovery. And so harm reduction is a term you're going to hear. That really the point of the program from our staff to our students is to reduce the harm that an addiction can cause. And sometimes that means there's a relapse, but they're still working to continue to get that student back and to reduce the harm that they may occur personally from their use. It doesn't mean students don't follow a strict guideline and understanding of what needs to be done. It just means they might have a restorative opportunity based on the nature of their addiction. Believe deeply in student resilience and capacity for growth. Obviously, in order for teachers and administrators to believe in all of that, they have to have that core for other students to be able to achieve. They have to believe in it themselves. Their mindset, relationship-driven, multiple ways to recovery, making that connection, different resources, different ways to help students, flexible, patient, emotionally in tune with kids. I mean, relationships are huge, but this is a much tighter group and community, and culturally responsive and inclusive students are coming in with, again, mental health as a co-creator to some of the concerns that they might have with addiction, and it's very important that our staff understand that. What we expect them to do, how are they going to work? So once again, a recovery high school is a rigorous place. It's a high school. It's not necessarily like an alternative setting or alternative school. There is a pathway to full graduation. It's individualized, rigorous academic support, recovery concepts into every day. So every day you're talking about your recovery from staff to students. It's not a secret. It's how do we do this? What's happening on the weekend? How are you going to keep yourself safe? Things like that. Using structure and predictability to promote safety. Again, that harm reduction. Collaborating between everyone and making sure they're on the same page with supporting students, depending on where they're at, academically and emotionally. And again, progress monitoring, data-driven, just like our regular high schools, that they're making academic decisions for students to push them academically while they're in recovery, but to give them a future that could be college, career, community, whatever that is, but that they're set on that path for success like in a regular high school. Blending academics with social-emotional, like I said, is our daily approach. Authentic relationships, healthy coping strategies that everybody's on board with, and then that component of compassion for our students. Again, the recovery staff, I'm not going to read all of these, but understanding that they have to have a certain lens to engage with our students. They have to be open to continuous training and development. They have to make sure that they're a stable force at a school where kids need those routines that Mr. Leonard was talking about as well. What we have done up to this point, so I mentioned this a little bit. So we have done the Recovery High School Planning Grant the last 2 grant cycles and received that. And we've been using that to have our partnership with ARS in a consulting role. The establishment of a Recovery High School Planning Team where we meet monthly on Tuesdays for up to 2 hours, hour and a half to 2 hours, where we've been working through this entire process that I went through before with ARS. Completed all those professional learning modules. We've visited the Pease Academy, 2 different teams at different times. So Pease is the nation's longest tenured recovery high school. Mike Durschlag, sorry Mike if you're watching, is the principal there and really is the head of ARS and sends out nationwide community information and was an amazing resource. I went separately from Mark with some members of the team, and what we learned there was really the basis for us coming back saying this is unbelievable and amazing. Obviously with them being long tenured, he does it well and does it right. So he's been a great resource, and that really opened us up to why we're here today. Attendance at the conference. Mark went last year in New Orleans because I couldn't. And then a group of us are going to go this year in Denver. It's a great networking opportunity to meet face-to-face with some of these individuals, talk more deeply, where everything that we have to do because of how far away we are is through virtual correspondence, so that's great. We do have a partnership with other recovery schools, so Manitowoc I mentioned, Beloit I've chatted with a couple times. There's a WebEx that happens with Horizon as well, where we all kind of get together and talk about how we can lobby legislation for maybe some specific state funding in certain ways, how we can be aware of what's happening at a different level for this potentially. I did attend the Horizon Recovery High School Gala, where I was invited to talk to a couple of our legislators that were responsible for the planning grants. Very powerful, just talking about what we're doing here, and those individuals, again, legislators have either are in recovery or have experienced it themselves or had family members that went through things where they would have had something like this, could have been a game changer, life or death game changer. Team members attending the national conference, I already said that, and then we are looking to visit additional schools as needed here in the springtime when we find the time.
Yep.
It's still in
By the way,
process.
PEAS, that was a student-created name. It's Peers Enjoying a Sober Education. First time I saw it, I thought, what in the world does PEAS mean? So I thought I'd share that with you as well. Peers Enjoying a Sober Education.
So our goal in bringing this to you is we are looking for your approval for implementing our Recovery High School in September of this coming school year for 26-27. I'm sure you have lots of questions based on the information we provided, so go ahead.
Very good. Go ahead, Mr. Brooks.
First of all, thank you for this. This was an outstanding presentation. I, at my day job, had a chance shortly after I joined the board to speak with some of the folks from Horizon High School in Madison when they were talking about legislation and putting some funding behind some of the grants that we were fortunate to receive. And it was the first time I'd ever heard about a recovery school. And as I'm hearing it, and the more that they're telling their story and telling how they operate, the wheels just started turning, because I'm like, how do we get that here? Mark, you pointed out the data and the need that this would serve in our community. Anybody, whether you're on this board or working in a classroom, working in other settings with students where you see there's some sort of substance use issue or addiction issue, it's so difficult because you see the potential in that child, you see the good in them, but you also realize that there's nothing that we can do from a school district perspective is going to matter until they take care of that piece first. But to your point earlier with some of the previous districts that you've worked in where they have that very hard line on this, now you're potentially sending that kid into a situation where they lose the only structure that they had, and we're not putting them in a situation where they can get that betterment. I think this is a great opportunity to serve that need in our community, but as you pointed out as well, helping other students dealing with similar things in the Milwaukee metro area, we'll be the only one serving this area, and I think it's incredibly significant that we might be able to meet those needs and really make that positive impact. So going to the profile, the portrait of a student, that would be a model student for this. Just speaking hypothetically, at what point in their process, Mark, if you saw a student who was dealing with some of these issues, at what point would you go to their parents and say, we think this might be a good fit? Like, how does that conversation get initiated?
Well, I think that's a great question. Myself and Lisa Paulin, my counterpart on the special education side, we are the ones who meet with students when they have a drug-related offense or an alcohol-related offense here at school, some kind of a substance. And I've just become kind of open about it. I've talked to you previously about Care Solace, which is our free confidential referral service available to anybody in the district. I give them a Care Solace flyer at just about every meeting now, unless they openly say to me, we've already engaged in support with a therapist, for example. And some families will tell you that during the process because it's a confidential meeting. So to me, that is a clear opportunity. It's just one of the many ways that we try to support students. And some families and some students are, again, open and honest with us and say, I haven't been doing this all that long. I was experimenting, whatever their background is. But others are saying, yeah, I can't make it through the day. And for me, those are the ones that would probably be the best first fit. Now, they would still have to commit to that sobriety piece and most likely that treatment piece, whether that's intensive, outpatient, or even inpatient treatment, depending upon the circumstances. And once that kind of hill has been climbed over, then the recovery piece where that education can come back in.
And then just kind of dovetailing off of that into that students in the recovery school now, and I think Ryan kind of alluded to this. Students in recovery school, they have a relapse, or they, maybe they bring drugs or alcohol to the school. What is that, like, what is the accountability measure for that student, and then where do we go from there?
Yeah, and that's where a lot of the learning with the other schools has really been interesting. What they're looking for is, like what Ryan said, that harm reduction. Some schools, and there's a lot of different ways that we can attack this, but one example is a school where they drug test their students so regularly and with such specific testing equipment that they can look at levels over time. So, typically if we have to drug test a student as one of our processes, it's a yes/no. It's they tested positive or they didn't. There are tests out there that can show you over time that their use is going down or that it's going back up. And then you have to have policies and procedures in place to help support that student and rebuild that relationship with that community. And that is something that we've been leaning on ARS to help us with, is what would that look like? And there are a variety of different ways that, they have helped us to see how we could do that. It does not immediately mean necessarily that the student would be removed, but there would have to be some way for them to rebuild that relationship.
So would the, pre-expulsion and expulsion process that we have for our current high schools, would it be the same for this, or would we kind of have to tweak that because it's a very different population that we're trying to serve for a very specific purpose?
I think we'd have to look at elements of it that, I'm extremely proud of the work that we have done in terms of the intervention supports that we talked about. Too Good for Drugs and then Teen Intervene. We would have to look at what higher levels of support we could provide that student, with the understanding that, you've made a mistake, but we want to support you and get you back. So some of those things I think could be very instructive to us, and that's where we lean on our partners at Elevate, for example, to help us think about, okay, when this happens, what do we do? So we're not caught flat-footed when it does happen. I think we haven't put pen to paper yet exactly on what that would look like, but that's the work over the next several months.
Wonderful. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you. This is wonderful. Thank you so much for this awesome presentation. Waukesha does so many things, on the cutting edge, and we have so many programs and things that we've implemented. And this is just another example of bringing something so unique and and new to this area. And I'm really excited with the work you've done already. This is fantastic and much needed. I just have two questions. The first one was, I know you mentioned the establishment of a recovery high school planning team. It sounds like you already have one in place. What types of people have you kind of garnered together for this? And then my other question is, where have you thought about where is this going to work out of? Like, where would this, the teachers and students kind of be hubbed? Has that come up yet? And
I'll answer the first part of the question.
Okay.
And then I'll defer to Mr. Pat for the second part of the
Okay,
question.
thanks.
The first part of the question is, we have 3 school counselors, a social worker, myself, Mr. Pat, and then Roger, really. He's sort of the extra member, Roger Oser from ARS, who often will WebEx in with us. So we're the initial group that's been working through this process. They're all fantastic, committed people to doing the work. And they've just been a huge help to us in gaining perspective and understanding student needs. So that's been really great. the second part of the question, I'm going to shut my mic off.
Yeah, with us starting, I mean, our expectation is going to be, year one is going to be a fairly small group, so we don't need a huge amount of space. But there are multiple options for next year, depending on buildings, different aspects. So I've been talking with Dr. Siebert about a multitude of possibilities, so we'll explore all of those, and we definitely are going to find a space and make it work. That's typical for some programs. To give an example, for Pease Academy, they have a relationship with a downtown Minneapolis church that they have a portion of it where they're have their classrooms and their spaces. So we have a lot of options for that.
And then that also goes for, along with this whole program, hiring the right staff members that you had mentioned with the right dispositions and qualities. That's also a part of it as well. So we would be bringing in certain staff members to work with this program.
Yes. So we've talked about you need to have an AODA counselor or individual who's there full-time. Every day there's group or individual conversations around recovery on a daily basis. That person is instrumental. You're going to have a program coordinator who is there all the time, who's doing all the in and out, all of the processing. It's a huge job to make sure grades and teachers and kind of like the principal, but doesn't necessarily have to be a principal. Mark is already the behavior person for the school, so if there's any concerns, what he just talked to, he will have a hand in implementing and potentially enforcing. Administrative assistant to support all the stuff that needs to happen potentially, and then alternative educational teacher with an alternative license who's willing to take training on specific ways that we want to engage with our students. They also are going to have to really do like motivational interviewing, talking with students, really have an understanding of how to interact. So that is what we would look to put in place to start upwards of between 2 and 4 staff members, depending on what we have for students.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. I wanted to just ask how this is going to correlate back to Waukesha East students. So obviously we have some students there that have had difficulty with alcoholism and mental health and so forth. I know that one of the things on your bullet points was mental health as well. Are we looking to work directly with Waukesha East as we start this out to see if there are students that can be pulled in this direction that might work out better?
The East would definitely be a place that we would look for referrals, for example. Both students who are placed at East through our abeyance program, which I and Lisa Paulin are responsible for that. But then also students who are at East who haven't shown up on our radar in this way, but who may then reach out and say, there's been something I've been hiding, and I don't want to hide anymore. So I think that that's one such way that we would look to find students. We'd also probably end up casting a wide net across a number of districts that encircle us as a way to find students who may be interested.
And then when do you have, I guess, like a good idea of when you would need to have that final mark of, okay, this is how many students we're bringing in as far as a building footprint goes?
As soon as possible, but depending on our approval for this, then we can actually get started and start to provide the information of this school to the surrounding area and start the referral process, and then getting the individuals in place. So the program coordinator is the one who is going to drive all of this work. That person's going to be passionate for the work and thus moving into taking the steps to get this out there, communicate with whoever needs to be communicated with, to start to get student referrals. We anticipated, if nobody from the outside comes to us internally, we anticipate around 5 students for sure to start, which is not uncommon but for starting purposes, but we would like to have between 25 and 50 students consistently as we move forward. But 25 is a number that's kind of, in my mind, as that is a good number for us to keep this Recovery High School consistent and providing support for students who need it, students and families.
And then when you were speaking to the other schools, what was their success rate for graduation? Did they share that with you? I'm just curious to know.
Yeah, data is different at different schools. And Mark, if you have some you could share, but 20%, usually it's a 20% increase in a graduation rate for students who are in recovery compared to if they went to a normal high school. So they might take an alternative path at a normal high school or whatever it is, but it's an additional 20% is what the data that stands out to me.
The number that sticks in my head, and it doesn't speak exactly to graduation, but I hope it helps, is the recidivism rate or the relapse rate for students who, go through treatment, are released from treatment, and go back to their previous school or a similar school. The relapse rate is something like 40 to 45%. Like 60% or so of the kids won't, but 40% will. Being in a recovery high school more than cuts that in half. So you're looking, and then I believe the graduation rate also follows because it's supported recovery. In the case of a relapse, it's supported there, and the ultimate goal of graduation is still out there. So that to me was really the one of the key takeaways in all this process is like they need this because if they go back to where they were, they'll just fall into the habits that they had at the time. This allows them an opportunity for a fresh start.
Yeah, agreed. That's great. My last question is that you touched a little bit on going to the state for funding. What kind of what does that look like as far as funding for this and what you've already discussed with them?
Yeah, what it looked like from my discussions was Horizon High School has a couple of individuals who lobby for Recovery High School, just talking to legislators around, hey, this is a need, right, similar to what we're talking about here, and what can that look like for funding in future budgets, et cetera. So that's an ongoing process. Part of that is the grant funding came out of some of those conversations that have happened in the past. So there is a planning grant, and then there's a implementation grant. The implementation grant is around $75,000 to $100,000. It is something that we would apply for and really hope and expect to get as part of this cost. It's part of our planning process with one of the only schools moving forward with it. Manitowoc did receive that implementation grant. So we are looking at that as right now one of our funding components to support us in this start.
Great. Thank you both.
Excellent. Go ahead.
Yeah, and I just speaking from the budgeting side of things, I think one of the difficult things when Horizon was the only one is it's hard to get lawmakers to look at if you're giving something out to just one school, right? Oh, this is just a grant, but only one person. But like, if we have more schools that are taking advantage of it, it's an easier sell because you can see what the success rate looks like in other people who are implementing it, and it's no longer just something that's a specific carve out for Horizon. I guess going back to a question that kind of came up as part of the conversation. So the classroom itself, obviously a lot of the things that the teachers are going to be instructing on is addressing the like actual issue of recovery and working with the student through that and addressing the whole person. How does that side of things interact with the curriculum side of things? Like how are we weaving and connecting those two dots for students? Or I guess how have other schools that have done this successfully done that?
Yeah, the difference between, I think I mentioned it, an alternative type high school like East versus a recovery high school is you want the recovery high school experience to be like a high school. So academic time is academic time. It doesn't mean that recovery wouldn't come up during that time, but English is English. And they're working through that with current curricular resources we have at Mentum is something that we would implement and use. That's why an ed license for a teacher to be able to implement, customize that accordingly, including up for rigor or meeting student level depending on where they're at. But there's times in the schedule where then they have time for their group work or we haven't scratched the surface with, sometimes some of our teachers have some time where they could potentially come over and there could be an art component, right? Or there could be a music component. So there's a ton of resources in our district that we haven't begun to tap to give an authentic experience to our students at the Recovery High School. So what we have observed is that schedule is more like a normal high school, an all-day schedule. And then when they're math time, it's math, English, but they also have electives, and then they have group time. And then there's a counselor always available for individual therapy if there's a problem. So that's what it would look like.
Perfect, thanks. Yeah, I mean, I look at the work that we do at East to support some of our students over there who are dealing with similar or adjacent things, and I look at the success that we're having there. I have full confidence that you all will do a great job with this, so thank you again for bringing this to us.
Go ahead.
I just wanted to make one point. So Wisconsin Act 72 is where this money got authorized for these recovery high schools. And when we were trying to apply for this, we just had tremendous support from our legislators and those of you that are on policy and government relations. We talk about our relationship, but all of our legislators signed on to one letter in support of us doing this. Representative Diedrich, who was a driving force in Act 72, wrote a letter for us. Rogers wrote a letter for us supporting us to do this. And so our size and our location means not only could we do this for our students, but we can be a hub for Southeast Wisconsin. So we think we have great support of it, and we think I have total confidence in these guys that we can do it very well. But I just wanted you to know those pieces, because like it's not every day that everybody lines up behind you to say, we believe that you could do this and do it well.
Thank you. I had a question regarding one of the comments in the two-pager. So it spoke about 86% of the potential students having a family of history or having a history of family substance abuse. I guess how does, in the visits to the other sites, the other schools, how have they kind of fought against it? You're obviously in recovery mode during the day, but then potential to go back into something that is uncontrolled environment at night.
There's, P's in particular talked about family engagement nights. Some offer family, not therapy, but almost counseling, where they're giving them tips and pointers on how to help their student navigate their own sobriety. So I think that those were a couple of the ones. P's in particular takes great pride in their community engagement, not only with parents coming into their school community, but also then the kids going out into the community. You know, they don't have a gym. They're in an old church school that doesn't have a gymnasium, but they found sort of a nice benefactor at a local CrossFit gym, and so once a week, those kids go for a couple hours and they go do their CrossFit stuff, and they learn about how to do that and how that can support your sobriety. So, that's one such way where they're trying to help them build healthy habits, including some things that they do over the summer. And so I think those are ways. This doesn't have to do with the Recovery High School, but what I have seen in some of the therapeutic settings around us is they are having a much greater focus on family wellness and family therapy as part of their either intensive outpatient or inpatient processes, where they're saying to the family, like, look, we got to fix whatever it is that needs fixing across the whole group and how you can support each other. And that's been really neat to see. And that's over the last probably 2 to 3 years that I've seen more of that.
And that would be a component for us to develop, as Mark said. I mean, Peace Academy and the amount of activities they have. So they, some of our community partners that we have that were in the slide, we're going to continue to look to them to potentially support us in before and after school programming, even summer programming, right? So what about the summer? What's the relapse? And these schools have individuals who coordinate this or who work on this, or solicit donations of time, even some funding to ensure that there's a really good programming for students, because if that environment exists and you're connected with the same individuals that are supporting you during the day, the more you can potentially be with them and not be at home in some of those environments is is advantageous, similar to our clubs and activities that happen at our high schools. The Recovery High School would look to do the same thing, and those are things we have to continue to develop.
Absolutely. One final question. So, Dr. Leonard, you had spoken about kind of that early intervention escalation. Do you see that the Recovery High School would play a part early on in that, the process, or is it kind of a final option, final step?
It would definitely be out there as an option. Like, I don't, if through the conversations in the pre-expulsion or abeyance process, for example, once it gets out there, people are going to be aware. And if a family were to come and say, like, look, we're really interested in this, as oftentimes comes out of those conversations for things like East. Like, I've had families or students with behavioral issues who said, like, I just don't think that this is a good fit for me. Is there a program at East that I can access? And then I'll take them through all the various programs that we have. So I definitely think that's going to be a part of the conversation moving forward. I won't shy away from that at all, provided we have the space and the ability to meet those student needs. I'm happy to have those conversations. So,
Yeah, to piggyback off that, we want our students to not have to keep it a secret because they know that there is an option that's existing for them, and that is early prevention versus not saying anything, not even having that as an option for them to think about, and they just stay silent and move forward and deal with it personally and without any support. So, absolutely.
Excellent. Thank you both for that. So this is listed as a possible action item. So I would entertain a potential motion to move forward.
I motion to approve the implementation plan for the Recovery High School as presented.
Second.
All right, motion by Mr. Brooks, seconded by Mrs. Gren. Any other discussion items? All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion passes 4-0.
thank you very, very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll move to our final discussion and information item tonight, which is enrollment and a school choice update. Mr. Pat, back to you.
Thank you, Mr. Harlan. Just wanted to update everyone as the school choice process and acknowledgement process has come to a close. All right, just want to share kind of the entire process again and have you ask any questions you may have regarding it. So starting with December 2nd, here at this Student Services Committee meeting, we began really communicating information for 26, 27, 4K through 12th grade students and families around our school choice and application process. Just saying that, especially with the redistricting and new boundaries, it's going to look different. And our focus was on students and families impacted by that redistricting, so 4K through 7th. But we did talk about all of the things that we do offer for enrollment, community nights for dual language, all the deadlines for open enrollment, Montessori, STEM, the academies, all of that was December 2nd for the entire district. But then we started to hone in on 4K through 7th grade and those that were impacted. We updated our district's website for families to access the information needed to complete the process through this committee and suggestions. Part of that was defining some of our terms that were out there a whole bunch, open enrollment, in a one-pager, next steps, what that meant, as well as a flow chart to talk about priorities for school choice or intra-district transfer. And again, all that was updated on our website as well. All current 4K through 7th grade families received 7 direct communications prior to the school choice, school acknowledgement process window closing at 4:30 on the 30th of January. 4 direct additional communications were sent to the families in which the data said they didn't engage in the process at all. So they didn't choose choice, they didn't acknowledge that they're good with going to their home area attendance boundary school. So we focused on them to ensure that they got a specific communication from the district only, so we didn't inundate more people that already did the process. And then our schools specifically reached out to those individuals as well through their communication methods to ensure that they understood what options existed and they had the information that was needed. So that might be a class dojo, or whatever else they use for some of their primary communication methods. So 2 from the school district and 2 from their current schools doing that. And then we had hundreds of phone conversations and email responses from all of our schools and our district departments, you name it, to support all the students and families through the process. A lot of times it was, hey, I did it, can you double check that it went through? So a lot of the questions I wouldn't say were abnormal for what we normally go through in a school choice process, maybe a little bit more so because of the acknowledgement, but nothing super in-depth, but just families wanting to make sure they did the process right and well. Oh, sorry, it's not a presentation. It's PDF. So what were the results of us communicating that, and how did our families respond to what we asked them to do? So we had 2,820 current in our district right now, 4K through 4th grade students and families, out of approximately about 5,800. Enrollment changes every day in our district, or about 49% completed the school choice or school acknowledgement form. Of these students, 1,625 accepted their boundary placement, and 1,195 applied for school choice slash intra-district transfer. So that's only 4K through 4th grade that did this at that clip. 1,259 current 5th through 7th grade students and families out of approximately 1,745, or 72%, completed the school choice slash school acknowledgement form. Of these, 1,110 accepted their boundary school placement, and 145 applied for school choice intra-district transfer. Total, 4,079 students, 4K through 7th current, and families out of approximately 7,540, or about 54%, completed the choice or acknowledgement form. Note that if you didn't complete the form, that whatever your home school was or your boundary school area is, that's what was defaulted in there, and that's what it will default to for your enrollment. For right now, we're compiling the information for conducting the first step in our school choice process, which is our principal meetings this Thursday. So we're going to start to finalize that, and then families will have enrollments shared with them through Infinite Campus sometime in March, and they'll be able to double check that we did everything the way we were supposed to, which we are, and we'll work with families that have any questions at that time in regards to this process. To have 54% of these individuals complete something is pretty remarkable, believe it or not. Our annual enrollment, where students don't need to re-enroll, but we ask them to update their enrollment so they have new information, medical information, et cetera, that's around 20-something% that families respond. So 70-something% of our middle school families obviously received the communication to be able to know what they were supposed to do, which I think says that the communication was effective. So what questions do you have for me on that?
Thank you for that update. I think that the number of communications going out over the month of January was very helpful in that, and ensuring that we were doing our best to reach out to all of the straggler families in that. So I appreciate all of the work you and your team did on the multiple communication steps there. Could you, I guess, speak to, I know there was a note out in another communication in regards to STEM applications, kind of some patterns we saw in that as well?
Yeah, the STEM application, so when we put out the note, we talked about, we had a couple of ors, so verify or apply for school choice or apply for STEM. And when it comes to STEM, we had 261 new applications for STEM, 96 for middle school, and 165 for elementary schools. So that's new. So as far as in any year goes, that seems to be on par or a little bit more than in the past for new enrollees. And so that's what we have at the STEM level. They control that process, but I have access to the spreadsheet, so.
Go ahead.
Awesome, thank you. Thanks for the update. So just to be clear, what I heard in the conversation is if parents didn't engage, they didn't, complete the form, then at this point, they can plan wherever their boundary school is. That's where their child will be. There's no more selection, of choice. If they didn't take advantage, then at this point, they have a seat at their late neighborhood school unless they choose to do something else, but that's where they'll be then. There's no other option at this point, correct?
Correct, yeah. Just to give you a perspective on elementary school choice, they average around 300 a year, and it was 1,195. So again, that message has been out there, I would say pretty effectively. So yes, students, they will stay at their boundary school if they didn't do anything.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Any other comments or questions? All right. Sounds good. So then we will move into our other business. So are there any recommendations for future meetings? Very good. So seeing none, we are done and complete with our agenda then tonight. Our next meeting will be on Tuesday, March 3rd, 2026, back here in the boardroom. Thank you all and have a great night.